our professional development program begins with our keynote speaker, Pete Gaynor, the Acting Administrator for the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and I am honored to be able to introduce him today. Administrator Gaynor has earned a bachelor's and a master's degree and is a recent graduate of the Center for Homeland Defense and Security's Executive Leadership Program. He served 26 years as an enlisted Marine and infantry officer in the United States Marines. He's been in emergency management more than 10 years, and among his distinctions are these. He was the first and for a time the only certified emergency manager within the state of Rhode Island, the first emergency management director to be awarded EMAP accreditation at both the local and the state level. And the state of Rhode Island has the distinction of being the first state in the nation recognized for having every municipality storm ready. Right? Pete Gaynor is one of us, and we are thrilled. He's at the top of FEMA, and we are delighted that he has time to be with us today. Pete.
Let me just get myself organized here. How's everybody doing today? All right. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here today at the 67th IAEM conference in EMX. My thanks to President Marty Schaub, CEO Beth Armstrong, Director of Government Affairs Thad Hughley, and the rest of the IAEM USA board for inviting me here to give the keynote. My congratulations to the retiring officers, and a warm hello to your new incoming president, President Terry Smith, and her new officers. I also want to give a shout out to all the emergency managers receiving their AEM and CEM today, certifications today. Job well done. FEMA is privileged to have a strong partnership with the IAEM, a relationship which continues to help us meet our mission.
How about now? All right, good. So first of all, I had some really great slides. We'll PDF those to you and we'll get them out at the end of the week. So I'll just try to pick up where I left off. And first of all, it's a privilege to be here, even in this romantic setting. This relationship, this very romantic relationship, allows us to continue our mission to help people before, during, and after disasters. And I look forward to building with power on this relationship to build an even more robust partnership as we move forward. So let me just do a quick shout out to some of the FEMA team that's here today. No need to stand up, but you can hoot and holler if you'd like. So with me today, Dan Kanuski at Resilience. He's my acting deputy. Dan, thanks. Jeff Byard, operations. He's the one without a tie. Bambi Krause from Tribal Affairs. Grants. Antoine Johnson from IPAWS. Laloni Sansby and Natalie Enclave and Kelly Allock from NPD. Mike Sharon from EMI. And then I have 3 of the RAs here today. James Joseph, Region 5. Mike, Rocket 5. Mike O'Hare from Rockin' 10. As the deputy and now acting administrator for FEMA, and as I reflect.
State director. And I think, and every day I'm at FEMA, I learn something new, but I think, hey, wow, I wish I had done a little bit more of that, a little bit more of, the other thing as I was a local and state director. So this presentation is entitled Confessions of a Recovering State and Local Emergency Manager. And so I'm going to just focus on 8 quick things in the slide. So I'll try to interpret the slide a little bit. About, we're going to talk about strategy. We're going to talk about mitigation, flood insurance, legislative championing, interoperability, how to build a successful recovery, readiness, and then all about people. So the first thing I'm going to touch on is about the strategic plan. And first of all, I want to thank everyone who had input to that plan, over 2,300 inputs to make sure that it's just not a FEMA plan, but it's really a emergency management professional community plan. It's our plan together. And so it builds on existing best practices and identifies new initiatives geared towards achieving the 3 goals. And I'm sure you've heard them all before. But first, to foster a culture of preparedness. Second, to ready the nation for catastrophic disaster. And third, to reduce the complexity of FEMA. That's my favorite one, by the way. And again, thank you for contributing to that plan and being part of that plan. It really is the foundation as we go forward. And it will remain our North Star as we go through the next year or so, because it is not just FEMA's plan, but it's your plan. So thanks for that. So the first thing I wish I did a little bit more of as a local and state director is mitigation. So I consider myself an operator at heart, and it's easy to let the complicated, time-consuming task of mitigation to the mitigators. Where's my mitigators in the room? Mitigators. All right? We need to change that. We need more mitigators in the room. Here's the trap, though, if you don't do enough mitigation. If you don't put enough adequate time and effort and focus on mitigation, you continue to live through the sins of the past, right? For every subsequent disaster. Every emergency manager must know the risk within their community. So here's a couple things I wish I did a little bit more of when I was a local state director. Advocate for stronger building codes, right? Collectively, mitigation programs such as those encouraging more stringent building codes that saves the American public about $3.4 billion a year. So if you don't have up-to-date building codes, if you're not championing building codes, you need to do more of that. I wish I did. And second is to have adequate insurance for your public buildings. All right, so who is self-insured in this room? Yeah, everybody is, probably. And can anyone define what self-insurance is? Yeah, self-insurance is really no insurance. Is that a surprise to anyone? Now, there may be a couple of jurisdictions out there that have an adequate rainy day fund set aside to, maybe pay out some insurance-like claims. But when you say you're self-insured, you really don't have any coverage. So schools, libraries, fire stations, hospitals, the best defense, whether you're a homeowner or a business owner or a mayor or a governor, is to get insurance on your property. So mitigation is definitely worth the effort. The picture I wish I could show you here today is I have somebody gave me a t-shirt, a mitigator, and it says mitigation is the center of the universe. And I truly believe that as I look back at what I did and I look how we're invested at FEMA when it comes about pre-disaster mitigation. So if you don't believe in mitigation or it's too complicated, too time-consuming, and you're an emergency manager in your local or county, you need to do a little bit more when it comes to mitigation because it is the center of the universe. Next is the importance of flood insurance. And so insurance, any insurance salesmen in the room? No, no, only one, Dave Marstadt, right? Oh, there's a couple in there. So insurance sounds pretty boring, and I'm sure it really is, but on the day that you lose your home, right, the day that you lose your home and your entire contents of your home, and I had a picture, just imagine that, close your eyes, a picture of a visit I made in Tulsa, West Tulsa for this year's flooding. A whole neighborhood flooded, and the entire contents of your life, right? Everything that's in your house today, from pictures to furniture to the refrigerator to your clothes, everything. Just if you're a hoarder, imagine all the stuff that you've been hoarding. Now it's wet and soggy and it's on the front lawn of your house. And by the way, the house that you had that all this stuff was once contained in is now uninhabitable. All the drywall's down, right? It is uninhabitable. So if you don't have flood insurance, you are putting yourself at risk, especially as a homeowner. So it's more than just having, hey, I have an insurance policy. It really is an idea about protecting loss of life, maintaining survivors' livelihoods, and businesses and communities. If you think about it that way, it's really the best way to go. And I'll give you an example. Back Hurricane Harvey in Houston, and feet of flooding. We have this program called individual assistance. The most you can get out of individual assistance at the time was about $34,000. Sounds like a lot of money, but less than 10% of all applicants for IA max out. The average payout for IA was about $7,000. Sounds like a lot of money, but again, just imagine everything in your house on the front lawn. You can't live in your house, not a lot. If you had flood insurance, right? If you had flood insurance, the average payout, $119,000. So what would you rather have? I would rather have both, but I really would like to have that insurance check from NFIP saying, hey, here's $119,000 to get your life back in order. So if you don't believe in flood insurance, you don't believe it can flood where you live, then you're living in a dream world. 98% of all the counties in the United States are flooded. It's just a matter of time. So try to convince your local elected leaders, your town councils, city councils, to promote flood insurance. It really is the best defense for you as emergency manager to get your community back faster, and really for the homeowners that are impacted by floods. Next is legislative change. I wish I had proactively championed more legislative change, both at the local and the state. Sometimes going up to town hall or the Capitol can be intimidating. Lots of legislators that are elected leaders, maybe it's hard to get their time to listen to what's important to you and your constituents from wherever you may live in your state. But it really is something that is enduring if you can pass legislative legislation, laws, and regulations. And you may have a great city manager, a great mayor that has done executive orders, right? Really great executive orders that is furthering emergency management. But executive orders they don't endure. Once that elected leader leaves, then even that really great executive order disappears. So you really have to spend some time, champion what's important to you and your community, make legislative change. You got to get out there, because if you don't do it, if you don't spend your time wisely, and the short amount of time that you have as an emergency manager, leader, then you're wasting your time, right? So get out there. Go knock on doors, go see your legislators, go to the Capitol Hill or wherever they're making law, and get what's important to you and your community in legislation. There's no more important thing that you can do. Next is operability before interoperability. And I'll say that again, operability before interoperability. I know we've been selling interoperability for years now, and it sounds really good, and it is really important. But as you look around the states, you look around cities and counties, sometimes I think we miss the mark. So it really is about learn to walk before you can run. And so before you can have interoperability, you have to have operability. So what I'm talking about is, you do that monthly test for your EAS system. That really is just a test to see if the on and off button is working. That's all it is. It doesn't really mean you can use it. And you can use other different kinds of communication devices to make the same point. You're really only testing mechanical function. Are you testing mission essential functions? Like, can you actually get on the radio, whether it's NAWAS or FNARS or your local radio system, 800 megahertz statewide system? Can you actually get on that system when all else fails and actually pass messages, pass information to the people who need it? That is a test. That's operability before interoperability. Once you master operability, then we want to go hog wild on interoperability. But really is you have to focus on making sure that the systems that you have, the singular systems that you have, you can actually use them. Not that they go on and off, but they actually people can transmit useful information in the worst of times. So again, operability and redundancy are critical to every function you perform in a disaster. If you can't do the basics, then you're going to have difficulty. Next is, I think recovery is the true measure of success. We often focus on, and I'm guilty of it, on the response mission as the barometer for our success. However, I'd argue that the true measure of success is in disaster recovery. So the newly passed Disaster Recovery Reform Act includes many changes that are related, and I'll just give a couple examples, to the Public Assistance Program. If you look at Section 1206, which is Codes and Standards, it allows you to build better standards to facilitate and implement and enforce adopting billing codes post-disaster. So you have that tool available to you today. Another section of interest is 1215, PA management costs. Requires us, FEMA, to reimburse you indirect management costs up to 12%. So let's change the how we measure how successful we are as an emergency management program. Let's change it to the recovery dynamic of how we gauge success. So emergency management professionals most focus, I think, on recovery and outcome-driven programs. We are pretty good as a nation when it comes to response, right? Many of us in this profession grew up as firefighters, police officers, in the military. Response is kind of first nature to us. The hard part is recovery. And this is what we don't focus on enough as a nation, recovery. Do you have a recovery plan in your local or county? Do you have one? Have you tested it? If you haven't, I encourage everyone to do more when it comes to recovery because, again, it is the true measure of success. Next is beyond planning, which I call operational readiness. So, we all love a good plan, and a good plan is a good start and requires validation. So testing, training, exercising the plan is even better. So can you convert that plan into true operational readiness? So let's assume that you have a resource management plan that outlines how you're going to get services and commodities to the vendor and to your disaster survivor. And let's assume that you have a pre-disaster service contract and community contracts ready to go. And let's assume it all looks great on paper and in concept. But have you tested it to make sure that you can get that service or commodity into the hands of the survivor, right? The last mile. Can you deliver it to the last mile? And you have to know that because it's all about success, that your plan reaches to the very end of the customer, in the hands of the disaster survivor. If you don't think that works today, then you need to give a little more effort into making sure that the plan is actually truly operational. And if you can't do it, then I would surmise that your chance of succeeding when you need that plan are pretty slim. So ensure that your planning investment can pay off when you need it the most. Make sure you can turn that plan that you put so much time and effort to, that you've tested it, you've trained to it, and you can actually do it. And last, when it comes to things I wish I did a little bit more of, or I wish I focused a little bit more on, is the key to this whole profession and this whole challenge in emergency management is people. And that may sound pretty obvious. So I've had the distinct pleasure to be a local emergency manager, a state emergency manager, director, and now the acting administrator for FEMA. And as I look back, people are your most important asset. Now, we've invested a lot of money, both appropriated money at states and locals, and we invested a lot of grant money in buying things to hopefully reduce how hard this job can be, right? So we bought thousands, tens of thousands of ICS vests. We have enough of those today? Everyone, we good? Do I need to reappropriate some federal grants to buy more red vests? Nope, I don't think so. We've bought a lot of generators. We bought a lot of stuff, right? And what I realized is you can buy a lot of stuff in the hopes that you're trying to solve a problem. You're going to keep chasing a problem by buying stuff. And if you take a moment just to think about what you're trying to solve, it really gets down to the people problem. And I'll just, when I was in the state of Rhode Island, I had a people problem. The people that I hired with a job description was from the 1960s. Right? The people that I hired, the people in that job description had to have a third grade education. This is only a couple years ago, my friends. And so I'm trying to hire people to meet my mission as a state emergency manager. It can't be done.
So the people that you're hiring today, do they have the necessary skills to match the functions that you need to be successful in a modern-day emergency management agency? And if you figure out the formula on this, modernize your job descriptions, make sure they match your mission in your agency, and then be personally invested in who you hire. Don't delegate it, right? Don't delegate it. You have to be involved heavily in who you hire, because those are the people that are going to make the difference when it counts, right? When it counts on the worst day, and when it counts on every other blue sky day, when you're chasing that problem that you haven't seen to solve years and years and years. So I would say just make sure that you properly invest in your people. If you properly invest in your people, I will make the challenge to you that many of these problems that you've chased will soon disappear. And because we're committed to this, and I am passionate about people coming first, and again, I have a photo of it, this year we created FEMA Publication 1, which is entitled We Are FEMA. And it's going to be out officially to the workforce this Wednesday. And it really is not too much about what we do as a business, whether it's FEMA business as emergency managers or state and local emergency managers. It's really about what we believe in as people, right? Our core values: compassion, integrity, fairness, and respect. And all the principles that we need to employ to really be the best agency to deliver those critical disaster resources to our disaster survivors, again, on their worst day. And it really is focused on people, because it really makes the difference. And again, if you don't focus on people, you will fall short. So we are committed to fostering an equitable, professional, and reputable culture across the agency and across the nation by our reinvestment in the people that serve the American public. So those are the 8 things I wish I did a little bit more of, and I'm just going to give you 3 quick tips, things that are late breaking, and I hope that you take me up on these.
So the first tip
Is we're pleased to announce the implementation of Community Lifelines Toolkit 2.0. And as you can see by today's lack of power, focus on community lifelines is critical, right? It makes it hard to do your mission or to deliver your presentation. So the toolkit is available. You can go online and get it, download it, and get it while supplies last. Tip 2 is we're about to announce, or we've announced, I think in draft, our process called Validate As You Go. It really helps reduce the burden of providing documentation and streamlines closeout processes. Who's undergoing recovery right now? Managing recovery? 5 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old. When the feds come back, when FEMA comes back and says, hey, we're going to close this disaster out, and it's 10 years old, anyone know where the first piece of paper from 10 years ago is? Because you know how we operate. If we don't have a piece of paper and it's attached to money, guess what happens? We're coming back for it. So Validate As You Go allows you to validate in increments. So if you're doing recovery, or you think you're going to have a disaster, or you want to know more about it, the toolkit will be out soon, but you can do it today. So if you need more information, come find me and I'll direct you to the right person. And lastly, when it comes to tips, did you know you can customize the emergency alert system to promote preparedness messaging? You know the message that this has been a test of the emergency broadcast system? You can change that. You can actually record a preparedness message instead of having that message that's been on air for 40 years, right? FCC rules allow it, and I encourage all of you that if you run a EAS system for your county, your local, change that message. Use it to, double down on preparedness of your jurisdiction. If you need more information on that, Antoine Johnson is at IPAWS today. I'm going to create a big tidal wave for Antoine, but if you want to know how to do it, he can let you know. And if you need more information, we're going to post it online. But I would just make sure that you coordinate this with your local broadcasters, right? Just don't go rogue and tell them this is what you're going to do. It needs to do a lot of coordination. But, yeah, I don't want to get a call from, the FCC chairman. But it really is, again, another way that we can use, another tool in the toolbox that you can upgrade preparedness in your local community. So change those EAS messages to something that has value. So, how are we doing on time? Great. So, I hope you like my presentation. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. I hope that what we started to share with you today is helpful and that you were able to take these lessons learned from a recovering state and local emergency management director to your communities to make them stronger and more resilient when, not if, disasters strike. So I look forward to hearing from you and your experiences as emergency managers. I'll be here most of the day today, so feel free to come up and say hello. Have a great conference. I hope the power comes back on soon.